On this episode of Roadkill's Junkyard Gold, we're at L&L Classic Auto, and we're in pursuit of speed and speeders. I'm Steve Mignonti, hot rod historian, author, and lover of all things cars. I travel all across the country to uncover the forgotten and hidden gems of the automotive world. And now, I'm on the hunt for the next Roadkill Junkyard Rescue project. This is Roadkill's Junkyard Gold. We're at L&L Classic Auto in Wendell, Idaho. The owner of this yard, Larry Harms, is a former farmer turned junkyard owner who's amassed a collection of over 10,000 classic American cars on 160 acres. He started this yard in 1967 with one philosophy: some cars are for parts, some are project cars to be left intact. This has led to a huge collection of highly desirable American muscle cars. Larry hinted at a Pontiac, which is a last gasp for the great one, and a Buick muscle car with plenty of speed. And of course, with speed comes the other side of the equation, the law. He told me about a very special 80s pony car that wears a badge and a 70s police cruiser with the heart of a Pantera. I'm also on the lookout for roadkill rescue that Dave and Mike could get out of here and running in 5 days. Frankly, the question with this episode will be what to leave out. Let's get started. A couple of smog-era Dart Swingers, 318s, maybe slant 6s, good commuter cars, like the chrome reverse wheels. And this, a 73 Pontiac GTO. How do I know it's a GTO? All I gotta do is look at that hood. Those twin NACA ducts are all we gotta see. Pontiac always did a great job of giving GTOs a very distinctive hood, and for 1 year only, in 1973, they used these. NACA stands for the National Advisory Committee on Aeronautics, a predecessor to NASA. And in the wind tunnel, they designed this type of duct, which takes air from the outside without creating turbulence or drag. Pontiac adapted it for the GTO in 1973, but here's the rub. These were not functional except for 10 cars that made it out into the public. Trouble was, these wouldn't pass wide-open drive-by noise standards. They were too loud. So after those 10 cars, these were purely ornamental. GTO gave you one of two engines, the 400 or the 455. Here, well, we see the 400 emblem on the grille. This would be a T-code 400 cubic inch car. This engine has dual exhaust, a 4-barrel carburetor. It's a pretty potent engine. But for 1973, had something new called an EGR valve. Let's take a look. EGR stands for exhaust gas recirculation, and this device right here would take a certain amount of the burnt exhaust gases and runs them back into the intake manifold where they're admitted into the combustion chambers. They dilute the intake charge and further reduce emissions. Still, this 400 makes 230 horsepower. I can see some options like the power boosted disc brakes, air conditioning, power steering. And I might just stop talking for a moment just to catch myself, if you don't mind. I'm not having a stroke, not yet. Something that wasn't an option was the telescoping front bumpers. Federal Motor Vehicle Standard 215 went into effect. Cars had to be able to have the bumper depressed 3 full inches, and within 24 hours, the bumper had to retract back to normal stance without any visible damage. General Motors came up with some shock absorber mounts, which were filled with fluid and oil, which actually allowed that to occur. But again, they weren't pretty, but they met the letter of the law. Back to the options. This car does have the P06 polycast wheel. This is actually urethane rubber, a flexible urethane face, and that 15 by 7 inch wheel was actually one of the largest wheels ever available on GTO. The 73 GTO was offered in 2 different body styles. While the sheet metal is largely the same, it was all about the rear side window. The most popular one was known as the D37 body type, which had integrated slats built in, was kind of sleek, kind of sinister. This is known as the F37, which actually has the full window for better visibility outside of the car. The rear axle will have a 323 axle ratio. Pretty peppy, but when you got air conditioning like this car, it dropped to a 308 to 1. This does have the anti-roll bar on the back, which was part of the heavy-duty suspension. It's so original, it still has the Delco spiral shock absorbers. But one of the most important things on any GTO is which transmission it has. For that, we gotta go inside. Okay, a bit of a bummer. This is a column-shifted automatic car. You could have had a 3 or a 4-speed on the floor or a console-shifted automatic. So this was probably bought by somebody who had a family and wasn't that worried about being the ultimate king on the street. As good as the 73 GTO is, it can be even better. Back in 73, there was a thing called the 455 Super Duty, which was available in Trans Ams, but not the GTO, except for a handful of prototypes that were shown to magazines like MotorTrend. I think what I do here is make a replica of a 455 Super Duty 310 horsepower engine, put a 4-speed transmission behind it, and I would clone the functional NACA duct hood and make this into a what-if 455 Super Duty 73 GTO. Successful junkyard is all about organization and knowing where your stuff is. Larry uses school buses to store unusual stuff away from weather. See a wooden wheel from an old Conestoga wagon, big old Ford flathead-powered bus here. Larry was telling me about an old Henry J. Gasser he built back in the late 50s, early 60s, and said it was powered by a dual-quad Pontiac V8 that was sitting in a bus somewhere. We just found it. This has an Edelbrock aluminum intake, which once held 2 4-barrel carburetors. See some homemade headers that he probably ran right down the floor of the car, no mufflers, open exhaust, like an old Gasser. I see the remnants of a conversion-style Hurst motor mount kit on the front of this thing. Now we need to find that Henry J. Big old Cadillac convertible. These things had 429 V8s, powerful but not a muscle car. These things were great family cars, highway cruisers. Same thing with this Imperial convertible, very rare body style. Barracuda, not really a muscle car, 273 small blocks, as good as it got. And that is weird. That's a 74 Torino. I was 10 years old when this car was new, and I saw these things all over the road in Massachusetts, but they didn't look like this. This thing is a painted two-tone body, very austere. And beyond that, I see dual exhaust. That always means a high-performance engine, if it's factory original. Yet, it's a plain Jane body shell. We've got to dig in. There's something going on here. Okay, Ford V8, of course. The sticker on the valve cover tells us 351C. This is the 351 Cobra Jet engine, which made 255 horsepower in 1974. Think about this. The Corvette L82 350 made 250 horsepower. Yeah, this Torino has 5 more horsepower than a Corvette. I think what we have here is a police interceptor. Now, this 351 Cobra Jet is an evolution of the 1971 Boss 351. It's a little bit detuned, has lower compression, but it still has the big valve heads, 480 lift hydraulic camshaft in this thing, and a 4-bolt main engine block. We see here the round ports, which are part of the 4-barrel cylinder head. What we basically have is the Q-code engine from 1972 and 73, which was the big dog engine in Mach 1 Mustangs. But again, this is not a Mustang. This is a Torino. And look at these. These straps between the hood and the body are unique to the police service package. The point of that is when police departments added radios and electronic equipment, they wanted to make sure that everything was very well grounded. There are like 12 body grounds on these cars, 2 of them right there. The clues are adding up, and I think what we have here is a Ford Torino police interceptor. Let's look inside. Anytime I think I'm looking at a police car, I go to the speedometer for more proof. Here we see a 140-mile-an-hour maximum, calibration certified, meaning that this would stand up in court. The bigger thing about this car is that it's a 2-door, right? Most police cars are 4 doors. After all, if they arrest somebody, where are they going to put them? Well, this car was built for freeway intercepting of speeders and people breaking traffic laws. This car was not meant to arrest people and put them away in the back. Rather, this was meant to go out, enforce speeding laws, write tickets, and go look for more. But while these cars have to go fast with that Cobra Jet, they also have to stop. Let's look at the brakes. This 74 Torino is a member of the 3rd generation of the Torino family. Quite a different car from the 1st and 2nd, which were unibody cars with leaf springs. These are body on frame with coil spring rear suspension, so they're quite a bit heavier. And in police car mode, they have to have big brakes. This is the huge 11 by 3-inch drum brake seen on the back of police models. And we see the anti-roll bar and, of course, the dual exhaust system once again. 74 is the last year for dual exhaust. 1975 saw the advent of catalytic converters, single exhaust systems, and even less horsepower. When most people think mid-70s Ford Torino, they automatically assume Starsky and Hutch. Yeah, that red tomato car with the white stripe. This is an actual Q-code undercover highway interceptor Ford Torino, and it needs to be brought back to original condition, not modified. This is a great case of less is more. A 351 Cobra Jet, 2-door Torino highway interceptor. This car is special. I wouldn't think that more than 100 of these were built. It's all here, it's not rusty, it's got to be brought back to stock. In 1965, Dodge built 201 A990 Hemi Superstockers. Trouble is, the existing examples that are still left cost $200,000 and more and are basically unaffordable. Well, people are now building clones. The problem is the two-door slant six post car that you could use for a clone, they don't exist anymore. They've all been sold, so the only solution is to take a four-door sedan like this one here and convert it. It's not that hard. The car is essentially the same. The wheelbase is the same. The roof is the same. The big difference is the front doors. So what you do is you take the rear door, weld it, make it look like it's been there from day one, move the B-pillar rearward about 5 inches, and then you grab a set of doors from any 64 or 5 two-door hardtop Plymouth or Dodge. And this yard is so diverse, I bet there's one of them here. Buick GS400. I see the dual exhaust here. This is Buick's GTO fighter for 1967, the tip of the spear for Buick muscle cars. The GS400 came out in 1965. To save cost, GM shared a lot of parts between their various divisions, including this rear axle. This is the 10-bolt, which was also used in the Olds 442 and the Pontiac GTO. However, they all had different gear ratios depending on which car maker you're talking about and which transmission. This Buick GS400 would have had a 336-to-1 ratio when equipped with a 4-speed, or with the automatic, they tamed it down to a 294, but available at extra charge were axle ratios up to 364-to-1, which are a little bit better for acceleration. One thing they did all share is the 9.5-inch drum brake at the back. Now, they've been harvested here, but they were used on all GM muscle cars from 64 through 73. The standard Grand Sport interior would have had a bent seat up front. This has the optional buckets. While the steering column and wheel and pedals have been harvested, this is the rubber boot that would have surrounded the factory 4-speed transmission, the Muncie M21 or M20 wide ratio transmission, a $187 upcharge. Base tranny would have been a 3-speed manual. An automatic would have been an option as well. Because Buick was GM's luxury brand slated just below Cadillac, they made extra sure these things were bank vault quiet inside. Here we see some of the extra sound deadener on the floor and transmission tunnel. Bummer. Well, it's missing here, but for 1967, Buick launched its Gen 2 V8 with 400 cubic inches. It replaced the Nailhead 401, which was the product of 1953 engineering. The Gen 2 400 had larger ports, larger valves, and a 750 CFM Rochester Quadrajet carburetor. Power went from 325 in 66 to 340 in 1967, 15 more. Doesn't sound like a lot, but a lot more torque. It was fully capable of running low 14s right in there with the Pontiac GTO. Buick priced the GS400 about $300 more than the GTO, but they gave you more for your money, including aluminum front drum brakes. The steering gear on this car is also specific to the GS400. That's a Saginaw manual box with a unique 5.57 turns from lock to lock, about 20% faster than the base steering box used in lesser Buicks. Frame. Whew, I guess I'm gonna drain my legs for a second here. Okay. Another feature that Buick included was a heavy-duty frame, which was fully boxed, weighed 90 pounds more than a regular frame, made the car much more rigid and quiet. I love this car, but the problem is it's too far gone for a proper restoration. You'd spend $80,000 for a $30,000 car. And with 13,800 of these cars built, they're not that rare. Parting this car out would be the thing to do. That's the great thing about these cars, the interchangeability of parts. I think Larry, the junkyard owner, has the right idea in storing this car in the parts car section. Dodge Coronet, 1966 or 7. Let's see what we got in the trunk. It's always fun. Okay, nothing remains of the front fender. And I think we've just solved the mystery of the missing gasser. I see the radius rear wheel openings where we had drag slicks, the blue plastic windows. This is probably, it's gotta be Larry's old gasser. The Henry J was the brainchild of industrialist Henry J. Kaiser, who brought us the Victory ships and Liberty ships that helped win World War II. These cars were built between 1950 and 1954. These were popular with people on a budget, but by 1956-57, drag racers realized this lightweight front-engine rear-wheel drive platform was excellent for V8 engine swaps, and they turned them into gassers, just like Larry did. One key modification for success in any gasser is engine setback. We can see here where Larry torched out the firewall and the dashboard to make room for the 389 Pontiac to sit here mid-ship. I bet you the weight distribution on this is 35 front, 65 rear. And no doubt this thing yanks the tires and does a wheelie. I bet you this thing hooks. The original Henry J. front suspension would have been a really lightweight A-arm setup with coil springs that would have crumbled under the weight of a Pontiac 389. So what Larry did is grabbed parts from his own junkyard and he created his own live axle. What we have here is parallel leaf springs and a very special front axle. That's out of a mid-1930s Plymouth. It's round, it's tubular, and it's actually lighter than a typical forged beam axle that he might have pulled out of a pickup truck or a van. Really well thought out. This little beast ignites the hot rodder in me. With its combination of the original factory-applied white paint and light surface corrosion, this thing has perfect patina. It's sad to see it languishing here in the junkyard. Somebody needs to do a roadkill-style rescue on this car. I'd say you'd want to grab that 389, put it back in place with the dual quads, back it up with an iron case, full manual hydromatic from the 50s, one of those good ones, the manual valve body. You know what I'm talking about, retro hot rodders. The rear axle's already here for you, the big Oldsmobile axle with heavy-duty springs. So Larry put those in a long, long time ago. You could share this car with the world while also bringing Larry's vision of running low ETs to life. 65 Mustang Coupes. These things sold by the hundreds of thousands, something like 600,000 of these Mustangs sold in the very first year of production. Chevrolet caught up in 1967 with the Camaro. On this one here, this white car, we can see that it has 4 lug nuts. So right there, we know it's a 6-cylinder car. V8s always had 5 lug nuts. Okay, now this is very, very cool. The black and white paint on this and the sheriff logo tells us this is not a regular 5-liter Mustang. This is an SSP, a special service package cop car. We got to dig in. As a 5-liter Mustang, this should have something called the Quadra-Shock, and there it is, yep. This came along in 1985 and evolved out of the Thunderbird Turbo Coupe and the Mustang SVO. Essentially what Ford did was use vertical and horizontally mounted shock absorbers to tame axle hop. It was so good that Ford used it through the end of Mustang 5-liter production in 1993. Now, if this is a true SSP, Special Service Package Police Mustang, we want to see a roll bar. Have we got it? There it is, yep. This is padded. These were installed by a company called Satina, and these were bolted in place and helped to protect the officers in the event of a crash. And another detail unique to the SSP Mustangs is on the doors. Regular civilian Mustangs of the LX and GT variety have a rubber belt molding that goes all the way around the body to help prevent door dings. The trouble is, when police departments went to put their graphics on the door, they had to worry about getting the graphics over the rubber. So all of these SSP Mustangs were built with what's called door molding delete. Another detail specific to these cars is the wheel. These are very rare. Now, this is a 15 by 7-inch steel wheel, and this is not shared with any other Ford product. The center is from the Ford Escort parts bin, has the same 4-lug hub as the Fox Mustang, but it's been welded to a 15 by 7 hoop to accept the larger police tires, not these generic tires. 5-liter Mustang guys kill for these wheels. They'll pay $100 a piece for them. When these were new, 5-liter Mustangs were pretty much the fastest cars on the road. Now, these grew out of a 1982 problem. Late 70s Ford and Chevrolet Crown Victoria and Caprice police cars were no longer capable of going 125 miles an hour and catching speeders. Muscle cars from the 60s quite often outran those late 70s cop cars, but the 5-liter Mustang solved all of that. This one here, with the fuel injection, marks it as a 1986, the beginning of the 5-liter EFI dynasty. This engine makes 200 horsepower and is basically the same as the 5-liter found in a civilian 5.0 LX or GT, but this has durability improvements, including silicone hoses, heavy-duty alternator, engine oil cooler. Now, transmissions, in the world of the police car, these usually had an automatic. Let's find out what this one has. Okay, this one is a stick shift. This is the T5 5-speed manual with overdrive in its 3rd year of availability for 1986. Frankly, an officer working the radio and the stick shift, well, sometimes there's one job too many. So again, most of these had the automatic. I also see the 140-mile-an-hour police spec certified speedometer. We saw one of those earlier in the show in that 74 Torino police car. In the summer of 1986, the state of Idaho ordered 22 of these SSP Mustangs from Ford, and at this point in time, only 8 have been accounted for. Well, make that 9. This car needs to be restored right back to police specification, complete with black and white paint, all of the sheriff graphics reapplied. This car could be shown to the world to remind us all of the day when the 5-liter Mustang restored order and police departments were able to catch muscle cars instead of watching them vanish into the distance. Yeah, 58 Thunderbird. The baby bird was all done in 57, and we got this big square bird in 58. A lot of people complained, but sales quadrupled. So this was the answer, and it was the right answer. Another GTO. We just saw the 73, but oh, this is better. Oh, this is a T37. In 1970, Pontiac launched the T37 as the bottom of the barrel, even below the Le Mans. The great thing was you could get any engine from the GTO in a T37. That included the 400, the 455, even the Ram Air 400. But it wouldn't trigger the insurance surcharges that a GTO would. And those surcharges by 1971 could be just as much as the car payment. So this was a great workaround against the insurance companies. That's why the T37 was such a popular car. While this T37 has the optional sport stripe, it wasn't mandatory, and that was good news. If you were a speeder, you could be incognito. Whereas with the GTO, with all the flashy stripes, the spoilers, and the scoops, you stood out pretty radically. Cops are on the lookout for muscle cars, but T37s pretty much flew under the radar. Okay, here's the V8 we'd hope to see. Okay, there's a Rochester Quadrajet on this thing. So the emission sticker right here tells us 352 barrel, okay? Either someone has added the 4-barrel carburetor to the 350, or if my hunch is correct, this might well be a Pontiac 400. I see the chrome valve covers, which were not part of the 350 engine package. The thing with Pontiac V8s is that from the 287 back in 1955 to the 455 of 1970, they all look about the same on the outside. So telling one from the other from a cubic inch displacement is tough. If this is just a 350 with a 4-barrel on it, it's got to be worth about 300 horsepower. I see headers on this thing, so this would be pretty peppy, right like it is. I think Freiberg and Finnegan would have a lot of fun getting this thing running again. Okay, yeah, well, a column-shifted automatic. It's not the sexiest thing on earth. This is the 3-speed Turbo 350, not the Turbo 400 used with the GTO. This could have been had with a 3-speed or a 4-speed on the floor, or bucket seats, a console, and the automatic down low. So it's simple. Freiberg and Finnegan can jump in this thing, put it in drive, lay rubber, and have a blast. I think this Pontiac T37 will be a great roadkill rescue. The key ingredients are all here. It's basically solid, so Freiberg and Finnegan, leave the exterior alone, especially the optional sports stripe. I love how it's baked in the sun, faded to almost a chalky black. But mechanically, I'd say get the 350 or 400, whatever that thing is, get it running. It won't be that hard. Tune up the Rochester Quadrajet, give the Turbo 350 automatic a fluid change, keep the shifter on the column, why not? That way we can put it in drive, mash the gas, lay rubber, do donuts, run from the law if you choose. Don't call me when you go in jail. And the rear axle on this car, you might get lucky. There might well be a safety track, which was Pontiac's term for posit traction. This car is so clean, so nice, and with all the patina we see here, this car deserves to be driven, enjoyed, and brought back to life. You guys can do it. Well, that's it for this episode of Roadkill's Junkyard Gold. We explored the relationship between speeders and law enforcement. And great news, I sent pictures of that 71 Pontiac T37 to Freiberg and Finnegan, and they're going to make it the next Roadkill rescue. So watch for that on an upcoming episode of Roadkill. Well, that's it for this episode of Roadkill's Junkyard Gold. Hasta mañana. So for 1984, the Ford Thunderbird Turbo Coupe came up. For 1984, Ford came up with the Quadra-Shock, first seen on the